everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Devil's Advocate Trades Edition with your host, Lisa McGrath. And with me today is Bradley Scott. I call him Brad because I know him. And he is the owner of Mint Property. And we're going to get into some of the things about Brad and why he is where he is and why he decided to go into the wonderful world of properties. Because I know for me, sometimes it can be a little crazy. I mean, I'm a construction consultant for condos, so I know how difficult it can be. You're managing many personalities. So, hey, Brad, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is it's a fantastic. It's kind of nice to be in the podcast world again. I had a little stint of it a while back, but now it's it's kind of nice to do that. It's almost I always said it's kind of almost therapeutic to a certain extent.
I agree. I actually, you know what? I watched your podcast when it was on the Tiki Talkies there, and I loved it. I thought it was funny. You guys were so raw and so like just forward. It was like uncensored. You just said what you felt, and I loved your podcast. I thought it was great. So I'm sorry you guys had to wrap it up for a little while. Maybe you guys will get back into it sooner than later.
Well, we kind of did a turn. So I have two TikTok accounts. We had the that TikTok account, and it's so restrictive with dealing with cannabis, I guess, is probably, one of the harder things to deal with on some of the social media platforms. So it was really challenging to be able to do it. So we actually when I decided to shut that down, I really started to focus more on my social media for Mint Property Management. And so when I did that, in a matter of 2 months, I went from like 213 followers to almost 1,800 followers just by doing videos and that kind of stuff. So we did a transition there, and it was fantastic. Yeah, it actually worked out really well.
That's awesome. No, I'm like I said, I loved watching it. I thought it was super fun. You guys had some fun characters on there. I don't know everybody that was on there, but I'm guessing that some of them were good friends.
Yeah, we had some friends, people that, even contractors that kind of had similar mindsets and had a fandom for cannabis every once in a while. So it was kind of like, the people that I associated with and kind of brought them on there and just had a little fun. It was pretty loose. So it was nice to do.
Cannabis, what's that? Just kidding.
Hey, are you not in construction? I'm sure that's I'm sure it's a big thing in the construction industry.
I may have written some policies on it. I may have had to have some conversations with people about cannabis. Well,
and especially when legalization first came around, because it was just so unique to everybody, I think, at that point. And I think everybody was scrambling to put together these policies that would kind of work.
Agreed. And so here's the thing is that it's hard now, especially with it being legalized, because now there is there's always been a medicinal purpose for marijuana, but now the spectrum has grown. It's very broad now. So it's like, I have anxiety, I need to have a vape pen, blah, 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 blah. And so where there's like this fine line where I have to tell employers, hey, that's great. You need a note from their doctor of what their like intake can be, what they're functioning on, and they can't be driving a company vehicle.
Yeah.
It's no different than an alcoholic. There's functioning alcoholics, right? And like for them to stop alcohol could kill them. Yeah. So, they function fine on it. And I don't have any gripes about that. It is what it is. Shit happens. And you get to a point where you've been so immersed in the addiction that now it's the only way you can function and you feel normal, right? So I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, you're an alcoholic, you can't do this. It's like, you know what? This guy's an alcoholic, or this guy is constantly, smoking dope or whatever. And but he can run circles around half staff and he's like super focused and blah, 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 or she. And I'm like, okay, so they're not driving a company vehicle, and we need to understand their limits of what they're utilizing. So there can't be any heavy machinery. We need to know who's with them. We need to make sure they always have a person with them so that we're keeping them safe and the person safe and the person knows. And, because I mean, cannabis now, like I always make jokes. I'm like, when people are like, well, I have an employee on cannabis, I'm like, what are you scared of? They might go into the convenience store and steal munchies on their lunch. Like, what are you?
Yeah. And it really, like,
truck, like, what are you worried about?
I think the hard part too, that I've always heard is that, when these companies put such a hard stop on, cannabis, for example, they put such a hard stop on it saying it's zero tolerance, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
People are not going to, first of all, not going to stop using it. Second of all, if they are abiding by the policy, they're going to figure something else out. And in a lot of cases, if you cannot do that because it's in your system, so if you're in the oil field or if you're a police officer, whatever that is, if you are not allowed to do cannabis, you figure out something else that you can do. And cocaine comes up because of the fact that, it's out of my system in 24 hours. So nobody can trace it. Nobody can track it. So it's almost like pushing people towards using those kinds of things, which I think is kind of the wrong take on that.
I agree, because there are worse drugs out there that are going to have a much longer impact and affect negatively impact and effect on people. And sometimes it's better to work with them than against them. And that's something that I always try to, when I sit down with employers, because I do a lot of their HR packages with them, like help them figure out which policies they want to do and help create those policies for them. I don't actually come in and help them do their HR. I just say, here's the little book that you wanted, with all your policies. I will happily roll it out to your staff. And I can be pretty comical about stuff. I'm like fit for duty. And I'm like, if you have a head cold and you took a Sudafed, are you fit for duty? And people are like, ooh. And I'm like, accurate. If you just broke up with your spouse, are you fit for duty? And they're like, no. And I'm like, accurate.
I can take a decongestant right now and it messes me up. It messes me up than most other things. So if I took a decongestant for a cold, I wouldn't be fit for duty.
Yeah. But that's what it's talking about. It's not, because what happened is if you go back 15 years, it was the drug and alcohol policy.
Yeah.
And some people still have a drug and alcohol policy. And I'm like, nah, it needs to be broader. And so I brought in an HR specialist before I got my HRM and started, and I got a lot of training from her, and I got to learn, and she's a good friend, and I adore her to pieces. And I've mentioned her once before, and her name is Eleanor Culver, and she owns Real HR. And she's the one who came up with for me anyways, I mean, maybe she knew about it beforehand, but she came up with the fit for duty and kind of covered certain aspects. And then since that point, I have broadened the spectrum of how it pertains to the construction industry, but also following suit on the government OH&S document that has for when it talks about the different types of hazards. So it's it talks about chemical, talks about biohazard, talks about all the different types of controls that hazards that you can have and how you're going to put the control into place. And I designed it to have all of those so that people are not just it's just if I smoke, some dope, or if I drink, or if I snort some coke. It's not just those things. It's it's a much broader spectrum. I mean, I know I've worked alongside, and I've also been the owner in companies where, people come to work and they are absolutely beside themselves because of a breakup, because of a death, because of their child is really sick or whatever. And they're just, they can't work. And I'm like, you're not fit for duty. I'm like, it's okay. You're cut. Go home, figure this out. You're good. You came in today, so we'll make sure you're paid for the 3 hours. I'm like, and sometimes depending on the situation, especially because of the financial and the way the economy is right now, there's times where I would tell people, I'd be like, you know what? Take 3 days paid. Anything you need to take over that, we're going to have to look into your vacation time. But I'm going to give you 3 days paid. Today is going to be the start. I'm going to pull from your vacation for today because you did come in. And I'm like, the next 3 days are paid. So just go figure it out. Because that's one of the things. They come in because they're like, I can't not come in. I have to make money. I have to work. And I'm just like, and that's a hard place to be when you're like, I can't self-regulate this problem. I don't know how to deal with this problem. I feel like I need to be here for this problem, but I also need to not create further problems by not bringing in money.
Yeah, and that's always a hard thing to do, especially on, as an employer as well. I think if you've got a situation where you are able to manage how your employees are handled in that regard, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, any of those types of things, if there's those policies in place, how much better of a place is that to work for? I think that if somebody, I go into my employer and I say, they notice I'm having a hard time, they say, take 3 days off paid.
Yeah.
I'm coming back after 3 days refreshed and hopefully better than I was before. And knowing that I'm not going to be tanked because I missed 3 days of work or whatever it is, then I'm creating other problems in itself. So, I think that having that is important. I think more employers should really take note of that and really just apply certain things like that, especially the mental health side of things.
100%. I think that when you give people the time that they need and then give them a solution, hey, call me on this day of your time off. If we need to look at how much vacation time you have, better yet, I'm going to call the office. I'm going to find out how much vacation time you have. So that when you leave today, you're going to get an email advising you how much vacation time you have and whether or not you want to take it now.
Absolutely.
Why not? There's so many people that abuse that shit anyway, that at the end of the day, it's like the people that really need it don't abuse it. And the people that don't need it abuse the shit out of it. And then employers are pissed off because the ones that have abused it, now they're cracking down. But I think everything is a case by case basis. And I think that's where employers are a lot of us are failing our staff is where you don't pay attention to the case by case basis. Casey, who comes every day, 15 minutes early, will leave 15 minutes late. If you need them to stay an extra half hour, they will. They're always there. They're always in a good mood. They're, you got to pay attention to that. They do their work well. You're like, you know what? Casey needs 3 days. Give them 3 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you got a guy a guy like Tommy, and Tommy's, comes in right at like 7:00. That's his shift, and leaves right at 3:30 because that's his shift, and he doesn't give a shit what anyone says. I'm not doing it, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it's stringent. It's like, no, I don't want to help you. So then it's like, well, then why do we need to help you? You just take time off, book it off.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it's the lack of finger on the pulse from management. They're not necessarily in tune with their employees' needs, and I think there's a lot of what you just said and what we talked about here that is a lot of reasons why I always say I'm really hard to work with people, because I'm a hard employee to deal with. I've got my own mindsets for certain things. If I think things can be done a different way, I do it. And it didn't work well in an employee environment when I was the employee. Yeah. So I was always trying to look for different opportunities to do it myself, or maybe I could make my own money, or just that serial entrepreneurial attitude. Yeah. Never really went off until Mint, but I tried a bunch of different things before that, because I'm just like, I can't work for people. I don't get the vibe. I don't get how employees can treat people the way that they do. And I just don't agree with how they do business, with just handling people in general. I think there's just so many things amiss there.
I agree with you. And I think there's a big disconnect based on who they put in their roles of management, which is a really big indicator to me on how the company is going to run, based on when, not just the owner, but when it's the trickle down effect. So when I'm looking at their upper level management and then their middle management, and I'm looking at a bunch of people who it's almost like they got the job because of who they knew, not what they knew.
Yeah.
And to me, I think it has to be more on what you know. Who you know is great, gets you through the door, but what you know is what gets you the job and keeps you. And so when you've got a bunch of people, it's like, not that I want to get political on you, Brad, but
let's bring on politics.
Right. It's like Trump hiring all his buddies in the White House, like, yeah. How well do you think that's going to roll? Like, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's typical. You put one idiot at the top and you let him hire all his idiot buddies, and it's going to turn into a shit show. Regardless of whether you agree with Trump or not, he's got some policies that make sense, but at the end of the day, that's what you've got. You've got a great big child at the top of the fucking food chain that's now going to bring in all his little buddies that all have temper tantrums and all have enough money to have the temper tantrums. And then people are going to be like, what the hell's going on? So they're going to run it like a conglomerate where everybody's a number. You can't run government like that.
No, and you can't run any business like that, in my opinion. Like, I understand, how it's difficult for some of the bigger businesses, bigger brands to kind of have policies straight across the board. But again, if you don't have a person that is actually with their fingerprint on the pulse, you need to hire somebody who has their fingerprint on the pulse. And I think having that middle kind of ground there, it just helps out employees so much more too.
I agree. And, it's like, I say that to my ex for my kids, because my kids' dad, he runs his own business, and I'll say to him, well, do you know what's going on with here? He's like, I don't know, I got people for that. I'm like, you need to have your finger on the pulse of your company at all times.
Yeah. It's important.
You're creating a vulnerable position to be sideswiped by your staff. And I've watched him get sideswiped by his staff. And when I was with him, I avoided a lot of that or cleaned a lot of that up. And then now I'm sitting here and I'm like, you haven't learned anything. Like, I understand that there's certain people that you can trust, but at the end of the day, you really can't trust anybody, because if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And that's unfortunate. And that goes for everything. So as an owner, you don't have to be an asshole. You just have to have your finger on the pulse.
Yeah. And understand the challenges that are there. I started very recently. I've been doing Mint basically by myself for almost 4 years or so. And then most recently I brought in a leasing manager. Most recently brought in administration to help out with some of the other tasks. But as my idea is that this is going to help relieve some of the job duties and that kind of stuff, and I can focus on other things. Yeah. In reality, it's kind of done the opposite to a certain extent, whereas I'm designating these tasks right now, and it's still fairly early, so there's a little bit more involved, but I don't want to lose my fingerprint to that pulse. I still want to be involved in the administrative side, the things that I need to make sure that are being done the correct way. And I will still do my checks and balances. I still need to be aware of the information that's coming in. And same with leasing. My greatest success has been finding good quality tenants. And if I'm not the one to physically meet them, see them, that kind of thing, I need to be able to have different kind of conversations with my leasing manager about those individuals and the information that they provide and that type of thing. So it's more higher level conversations I'm having, but it's keeping myself involved in the day to day. And I don't think I'll ever lose that, because it's such an important part of the business is just being with your people and being, in the fight with them as well for any of the things that they do.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I always say, like, more money, more problems, right? Because with more money means that you need more help, which means you need more people with different or similar expertise.
Yeah.
Which then becomes more problems, because people are like, I've got a safety background in construction, right? And we always talk about hazards and controls. I'm like, the biggest hazard you'll ever have that has no control is people.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, they are the biggest safety concern in any aspect, because for the 10 that will listen, you have another 10 that won't. And they won't for multiple reasons. They won't because they don't care enough, because they're entitled, because they don't understand, because they don't think anything will happen to them. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, There's a barricade there for a reason. Why are you climbing over the barricade?
Yeah, it's very true.
And I'm just like, what is happening when people install all of these different aspects, and sorry, hang on one second. My doorbell just rang and I don't know why.
Special delivery.
Yeah. Sorry. Hang on one second. My child's home. Hang on one second. Hang on.
Yeah, no problem. Yep. Cable guy.
I forgot today's Friday. My children are off early.
I actually thought the same thing. I was like, I was coming up here and my wife's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go do this. I'm going to go pick up kids and do this. I'm like, what time is it? Like, yeah, Friday noon. Yeah, I guess they're off now, aren't they?
No, I'm looking at the time and I'm like, they're supposed to be off till 3. And then I'm like, oh, it's Friday.
Yeah. So I don't remember ever being let off early on Fridays. I thought it was just an all day thing.
Right?
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It was a long time ago, so who knows?
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, because that's exactly what happened when we were kids. Because you and I, as we've now discovered, we were pretty much the same age. Yeah, we're 80 babies. We did. Do you know what? They actually did some research. I think we went to school 240 days. Sorry, it's my kid.
They're persistent. At least they're persistent.
Right, and I can't put it like it's on like do not disturb, but if they call, it comes through. So
that's fair. That's probably a good.
Oh, well, because they're on a special bypass. Hang on.
Yeah, to eliminate that special bypass.
Yeah.
Sounds like trouble.
It is. Well, it's because they're on the family plan for Apple. So my kids are the only two that it doesn't matter if I'm on silent, do not disturb, it doesn't matter. They come through. So I hate it when I'm like sitting in a meeting and it's like 7 people and we're all like having this great big business meeting, or if I'm doing like a rollout with 30 people and I'm in the middle of saying something and my son calls, because he's usually the one that does, and his ringtone comes through and I'm like, ha, and people are like, oh, you're gonna turn your phone off? I'm like, funny story.
And then you have to explain the story every time.
No, all I say is that unfortunately Apple decided that when you do family plans, your children have no mute.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I don't agree with that at all. There should be extra mutes.
Extra mutes.
Extra mutes, just in case. If they try to get through and it actually gets through, then there's another mute that prevents that, just in case.
Right? He's just telling me where he's got to be by 3, and I just said fine. So, my children. He's like,
we should be cleared up by then, I think.
We will be. It'll be fine. But yeah. Anyways, I want you to talk to me about Mint, because I'll tell you what, I've been watching your TikToks, because you do have some TikToks and you do have some, I think you have some on other socials as well. And you're doing the walkthroughs of all of the different rental properties, which is great. Now, I also know that you were also looking at doing condo as well. Are you doing any of the condo? So let's Let's get into
Yeah,
that.
so I'll start off with condos first. Yeah,
Okay.
so absolutely. I've had my condo license. Again, I started in condos 14,
Mhm.
15 years ago. First property I got basically hired as a condo manager, no previous real estate experience before.
Okay.
And I'm given 12 properties, 1,200 doors, $50 million in assets as I don't know how old I was, 24, 20, whatever, 24, 23. And basically go through the door and say, you can do it. That was it. Just you can do it, and learn by getting thrown to the coals and try to figure out things as I go, that type of thing. And so that was kind of my first taste in condos, and I stepped away from it after probably about 4 years, and I really wanted to get back into it, so I got my license again. And then my first condo came up in December, so December 1st was my very first condo,
Hmm.
64 unit townhouse complex in Airdrie.
Hmm.
And then picked up a second one, which is Mission, downtown Calgary. And it's a 22 unit building there too as well. So that one just came on in January. So I've got two fresh condos that I'm really just kind of piecing together now, and creating the protocols for future kind of growth on that side of things. And that's really been a lot of my attention right now, has been focused on getting those set up, making sure that they function properly. And it's been just a pretty big workload over the last couple months, just getting them set up and everything like that too.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then,
and then
what?
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, and then you've got your other side, your
Yeah,
leasing
and
side.
and then the property management side and also the sales side. So I'm a realtor as well, so I do sales occasionally too. So kind of the mixed bag of where Mint Property Management is. My main focus has been property management.
Mhm.
In total, right now, I've got 140 doors through my single family home property management. I
Mhm.
manage 82 units for Airdrie Housing, and then
Okay.
I've got the condos on top of that too as well. So I'm pretty close to about 300 doors in total, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing.
um, yeah, it's been lots of fun, and just this last 4 years is I didn't expect what I got. I guess I could say is that I was very humble in the fact that I was only going to get 1 to 2 a month type of thing. That was my goal. My first year, I did 27 new properties. And then, just think 4 years down the road and I'm at 300 now. That's, to me, it was just been absolutely crazy, and really just based on referrals, people in the community, people that I did business with, they felt I did a good job, that type of thing. So that's been kind of the Mint nutshell, and into the condos as well. So, yeah.
I love that. So I'm gonna throw a couple things out there for you. So
Yeah.
I sit as a member with two different organizations, which I'm sure you should know of. One is CCI.
Yeah.
So CCI, I sit as a member and I sit as a sponsor. And they're great. And so I do a thing called Condo Strengths, where I'm around condo owners all the time. That every once in a while I need a moderator, so I might hit you up. Be prepared for that. And the condos
Absolutely.
are all over the place. Now, the other one where I think would be really great for Mint is COF, so Condominium Owners Forum. So I do
Okay.
the condo chats on that, and I'm going to try and get you into the condo chats on that one, because we need a property manager to come in and have a conversation, because I do have some sheets about the differences between project managers and condo managers, because a lot of people don't understand the difference. A lot of
Yeah.
people are like, well, we have a property manager, don't they do that? And I'm like, no, when you're doing like a $500,000 project for replacement of windows, doors, siding, roofs, that is not your property manager's job to organize or to
Yeah.
orchestrate. It's your job to find someone who does it for you, or to work with the trade. I don't ever trust the trade until they give me a reason to trust them. And when you're not asking the right questions, you won't know whether you can or not. That's why people like me exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Right?
it's a good point you bring that up too, because it is a lot like that. And I think a lot of times it is just somebody bringing on a contractor, that type of thing, and just saying that they'll do the work and just trusting that they'll do the work right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what condo management companies do is in their agreements, they
Mhm.
have it so that if you are essentially a project manager, if you want to call it that, then what they will
Yeah.
do is they will charge you a percent of the project. So let's say it's 5%, and you're doing a special assessment for $2 million. You're getting 5% of that back paid to the condo management company as as kind of managing the project.
Mhm.
Now, who's managing that project is the condo manager. I
Mhm.
personally am
Mhm.
not a project manager. A lot of condos aren't project managers. The companies are not project managers. So they put that in there to collect their fees so that they can oversee those projects being done, even though they are not in any way educated to do so. So in how I've done it, how I do my contracts is that, first of all, I don't charge a project management fee. I don't charge a percentage based on a project because I'm not managing it. That's not my role. If they want somebody to manage it, guess what? They bring somebody on to manage that project so that they know exactly the process, the steps, the laws, the codes, all those types of things are not even close to my profession. So I've taken that out of there completely. I will not manage a project. If they want somebody to do it, which is fine. I think there's a lot of opportunities to do that in different projects. They need to bring on somebody that can manage that.
That's when you give them my card, Brad.
Exactly right. And, we've been talking over the years too, and I, knowing that that's kind of what you do as well, but I kind of had a little bit of a place in how I do things as well, knowing that that's the case. And also knowing that I'm not a nickel and dimer. I don't want to do accounting this, accounting that, nickel and dime everything. Just can't. I don't have time for that.
So here's the thing, and this is what's really funny, is that I've got two different types. Most of my condo clients are male. Funny. And I'll tell you why. Because the property managers that are male are not really control, and I don't mean to say not all the women are either, but most of the males are not control freaks. They're not like everything needs to go through me. They're like, here's Lisa's phone number, give her a call, she'll handle it. And then they're kind of like, okay, keep me in the loop. And they don't want any part of it. They back off, which is what's supposed to happen. I'm being hired by the board of directors and I'm standing with them and I'm going through everything. I don't want to go through you and wait 3 days for an answer I can get right away. It doesn't, all it does is it builds up your email that you don't need about a project. You're going to get the reports. Hey, here's where we are. This is what's going on.
That's what I need. That's all I need to know.
Yeah. You're going to get the when I'm doing procurement with them, you're going to get the bids. You're going to get the pertinent information that makes it really easy peasy for you.
And then I can ask the questions as I go. If I need follow up, I reach out. If I need to have questions, I reach out. But other than that, it should flow. It should flow really easily. Yeah,
because your job as a property manager is to oversee the operational day-to-day of that project, not the construction operations of that project.
Yeah.
Right. If they've got a capital reserve expenditure that needs to be addressed, that's a call to me saying they need this, and then they've got access to a professional that comes in, and they have access to me all the time. So. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm just a rate. I'm one rate. Here you go. 20 hours is what it's going to cost you. For the month, this is what it's going to cost you. This project is going to take X amount of time. This is what it's going to cost you. And they're like, well, how come? And some people will say, well, how come it's so much? And I'm like, because you can call me at 8:00 at night and I will respond.
Yeah.
You're spending a lot of money. And when you get those moments of panic and you think that maybe you don't want to go with grayscale now, maybe you want to go with a brown scale, you can make that phone call and I can pump the brakes before the contractor comes in, and then I can bring up that brown scale out the next day or say to you, no problem. When do you have time? I'm coming.
Yeah, and you look at the opposite effect where if you are to, in any case, it doesn't even matter if this is a project or this is a piece of communication, whatever it is, on a typical response, how long does it take to get a response from a property manager?
Anywhere from 1 to 3 business days.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a lot of times you need information in 20 minutes. You need information in an hour. You need this information to happen quickly because, trades are doing their job. And if they don't have something, an answer quickly, it delays things. And a lot of things could come up that kind of impact that. And so I think that's why it's important to have that so that you do have quick answers and that type of thing too.
100%. And trades are also really bad for that. A lot of the guys are really bad at communicating with the internal dynamics of their company and getting back to the client because they're
bad at communication.
What's that?
Guys are bad at communication. Is that what you said? Oh, okay. Sorry. I must have misheard that part. Sorry for interrupting.
What happened? No, I mean, when I say guys, I mean just construction in general. Because you have to remember you're a different breed of guy. You're in a top heavy communication and paper role.
Yeah.
You have to make sure those documents are dealt with when you're dealing with real estate. You have to make sure that you have all of the information, and you have to make sure you're a different breed, Brad.
It is. It's definitely the truth. Well, and you look at the construction guys too as well. You see some of the guys that are, using a hammer 1 minute and then they're having to have a conversation about the budget the next minute. Yeah. I honestly think the people that are involved in that way, they are fantastic, because if you're the guy that can swing a hammer and you're also the guy that can be the face of whatever project you're dealing with, those people that do it really, really well are so rare. They're so rare. You're usually one or the other. They're usually either good with the hammer or, good with people, but not typically both.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But then I always find that most guys that are good, you either have the guy that's good on the tools and good with people, or good on the tools and good with paperwork, or good with people and good at paperwork. You can't have paperwork thrown in the mix with them. It doesn't work. Yeah,
that's hard. That's a tricky balance too.
Yeah, it is a tricky balance. And I've met guys that are like really good with people, but actually hate people in real life, but are really good with them. And I'm like, and I always make jokes. And I was like, don't you hate people? And they're like, yes, but it's my job. And I'm like, but you're so polite and everybody likes you. Like, you're so popular.
I wouldn't say popular, but I do get that a lot, in the fact that, like, my home life, I'm reserved. I try to, like, keep to myself for the most part. I'm not really outspoken, that kind of stuff too as well. But sometimes when you get me talking on something, or if I'm meeting somebody about a property, or if I'm meeting a tenant, those are the things. It's almost like a switch where it just kind of turns on, because that's kind of what you have to do. But after a day of talking, I'm just like, I'm done. I go home and I'm just like crash on the couch, and I can just turn that off completely.
Yeah, it's true. But you got to remember, people are like energy vamps, a lot of them, right? So it's like you're around so much like up and down energy and putting out fires and fixing things and helping people understand that you're mentally drained. That's why TikTok sometimes is amazing, because you can just like, aimlessly like just like flip through and be like, man, that's funny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's so dumb half the time. And even like, you asked me about TikTok before, and like I said, I just kind of like started doing these videos where I'm doing the tours of rental properties, and it's not very common. You see it for sales all the time, but never for rental properties. And I always keep it very light. I keep it, kind of fun, entertaining, just really, general. Like, it's not anything in particular. It's very generic. It's just a guy showing you a home type of thing. And it's just exploded. Like, it's exploded over the last little while.
Nice.
I haven't even done a live yet. Apparently I can go live now. It'd be kind of nice to do that at a property level type of thing too. And you can even make money off that. I don't know. That's never going to happen for me, but it's just, never say never. The way that things are going right now, it really has taken off, and it's also impacted my business unbelievably in a bunch of different ways. And I never would have thought that. So I've got probably and again, this is over the last 3 months, gained 1,500 followers. I've got one video that's 170,000 views. That was my first video that kind of went crazy. And ever since then, I've probably got 7 new properties in the last 3 months from TikTok. I've got 4 new tenants from either TikTok or Instagram. And these were properties that were listed on RentFaster, and nobody was responding to them. And so it just kind of took off with that side of the business. Never would have thought it. Never would have been. Again, we're in the same age group, so we can talk clearly about this. We weren't born with technology. We were born learning the technology as we were growing up. So this wasn't a priority for me at the start, but it sure is hell a priority for me now.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And it's the same with me, like with my podcast, and it was interesting because right before Christmas, I got a Podcast Canada stats, and they sent me an email, and they were like, hey, Lisa, you're doing really well. You're ranking 204 in entrepreneurial in Canada and all of Canada. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, how many podcasts are there? And especially in my category. And apparently there's like thousands of podcasts inside of Canada that stream both states and Canada. But what happens is that most of them are considered Canadian because it's by people who are content creators that also have a Canadian address. Okay. Yeah. And then in Canada, there's like, I think they've got, last I checked, I believe it's in and around 500 plus entrepreneurial.
Really?
So I was like, oh, and I'm like, I'm streaming at 204. And then yesterday, I got to double check those stats. So don't quote me. But then yesterday, they're like, you're at 145. And really? I'm like, in like a month. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, streaming on Apple at 145. And I was like, in like all of Apple, or like what are we talking here? It's don't freak me out. Like that's like that, like it's a good milestone if it's just in your category, but if it's in a higher category, it's kind of like I need to sit down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's kind of cool. Like those kind of wins that you probably wouldn't have thought about,
No.
a year ago, 2 years ago, that type of thing. It's amazing that these are now products of business. And I always kind of like go back to even RentFaster, for example. I feel like people are getting a little bit blind to the RentFaster postings, the RentFaster ads. It's been one of the main platforms. So people are trying other platforms and, that kind of thing. So it's really become a little bit numbing to people, I think, a lot of times in the market. So I think when they see something, whether it's a podcast or it's TikTok or, something, a reel on Facebook, whatever it is, I think people are looking at those a lot more seriously when it comes to business than they ever have before. And I think, again, I can speak for it just because of how it's impacted my business, but you look at all these other content creators or people that are using their TikTok to grow their own business. There's some amazing real estate TikToks out there. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. There are some, and you know what? I like looking at beautiful properties. It's one of the things that actually, so there's like 3 different types of things that actually calm me down. Like when I'm like had a really shit day and I just want to kind of like vegetate and just look at something nice that's going to make like happy feelings. And all of it has to do with properties. So it's like looking at like different types of properties inside the properties and then like cleaning the properties.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're probably always watching my TikTok then.
It's not wrong. You come across me a lot. I'm like,
I love that when people tell me now they're like, oh yeah, I saw you because of your TikToks. I'm like, shut up. It's crazy that people even see that stuff. It blows me away.
I know. It kind of feels surreal. Like when people are like, oh my God, I listened to your TikTok the other day. And I'm like, you what now? Or like, or I have friends of mine that are like, oh, I listened to your podcast. And I'm like, oh
yeah.
Don't talk to me about it.
It's embarrassing.
Like, thank you, but don't talk about it. I'm not there yet.
But it is a little sense of pride too when it grows and that kind of thing too. So it's been so fun to just watch it grow. And I do it with my marketing guy. His name's Josh, and we basically set up appointments. We'll go and where we're actually going out next Wednesday to do a bunch of videos too, and do about 5 different properties. We'll go for lunch at some point during that too as well, and we just kind of made it into a little bit of an event.
What you're doing is great, and I love that you're like it's like a one-stop shop. It's like, do you need to buy a house? Do you need to sell a house? Do you need to rent a house? Or do you have a condo that needs some help?
Yep.
Like, and I love that.
And I think it's great. I kind of took away the advertising because when I just changed my logo fairly recently, about 4 or 5 months ago. Okay. I had Realty in there, so people did know and would ask more that, hey, are you a realtor as well? But I took that away because I really wanted to be focused on just the property management side. But my relationships are with 2 groups in my transactions. It's the owners and it's the tenants. There's 2 opportunities there for me when I have conversations with them, whether it be starting out with them, doing a move out for a tenant, whatever that may be. That owner eventually will sell that place. And I'm hoping that there's a better chance because of my relationship with them that I'll have the opportunity to sell that house.
There is a better chance. So
yeah, absolutely. And if I've already bought those relationships by securing a property management deal. Whereas if I was only a realtor, trying to get new business is very hard. It's a very competitive industry. There's enough realtors. Like you put a post saying, hey, I'm looking for a realtor in this area, and you will get thousands of requests for realtors. Everyone has the best realtor. So you have to differentiate yourself. And that's kind of how I did it with that, and just being able to offer the sales part of things. And then when the tenant moves out, hey, maybe they're going to buy a house. So I kind of use that leverage through those relationships to get some sales. And again, it's not the biggest thing for me, but I do like doing it. It's fun to kind of do the sales process and, sell a home, and you kind of still get that rush and everything like that, like you do when you sell your own home. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's fun.
I think it's great. I think what you're doing is amazing, especially in Airdrie. I know you're all over. I know you're in Calgary. I know you're Calgary and area, and because Airdrie is your home, much like mine. But I love that you're you kind of do everything and you are everywhere. Like you're very accessible, you're mobile. So, but and you're absolutely right. Like I always make the joke, and it is totally my joke. I'm kind of an asshole about it. I'm not gonna lie. But like it seems like after COVID, coaches are a thing. Like everybody's a fucking coach. Like I've experienced PTSD. I'm a coach in PTSD.
You're a coach now. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm just like, fuck, are you like really like, did you do anything outside of just saying I experienced it myself? Because your experiences are not going to be the same as the next person's experiences. You might be able to identify, and some of the things they might say might resonate, but you're not there. And so then it's like the same thing with coaches and realtors. You can find them everywhere. Find them everywhere. It's hard to get a real estate license, but the difference is there's good ones and there's okay ones, right? So it's finding a good realtor. And, you know, there's quite a few people that I know that are great. Like the realtor, and I know, you know, the realtor, like the realtor that sold me this house, everybody knows the realtor in Airdrie. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Are you gonna throw a name out there?
Yeah, I'll throw a name. But I mean, like, but that was my realtor, and that was Raj, right?
Yeah.
So Raj was my realtor, and you know, and he does a lot of business. Like I see him all the time doing stuff, right? But you know, there's only a couple of realtors in Airdrie that I will recommend now, because for me, I feel like Raj has done so well and continues to do well that he doesn't need any more publicity from me. So for me, it's like the next one is like Danny. I don't know, like Danny Walker.
Yep.
So he's just right here in Kings as well. So like for me, it would be you and him, but I don't think about you as a realtor. I think about you when someone's like, hey, I'm looking for condo managers. I'm like mint. Right.
Yeah.
So that's where I think of you. So don't be upset.
No. And you know what? I will say almost say the same thing. I consider myself an okay realtor. I don't think there is some really, really, really top-notch realtors here in Airdrie. Like I'm talking, if you want a realtor of all realtors, there's probably 2 or 3 that you should probably go with. Yeah. It's also a vibe. So like if I go to those top 3 and I just don't feel it, then go to the next person that you think that might be beneficial to you. But I think those top 3, there's definitely a good group, and Raj is in that group too as well, that they're just an excellent realtor. They just have so much history, so much professionalism. They've been doing it for so long. They're just good at it, and they're very people-y. They're very good with people and dealing with them that way. And I think that's what separates them from like the okay realtors like myself. I'm not a hustler when it comes to the real estate side. These guys are absolute hustlers. They know how to find the business. They know how to get that repeat business, and I think that really works for them that way for sure. And that's why I say I'm an okay realtor. But these people are fantastic. They are just there's some really good ones.
And I think that's great that you say that. But at the same time, like you've said, your passion is to be the property management side.
Oh yeah, I love property management. I tell this to other people too. I wake up on a Monday morning. My kids are now off to school. I grab a coffee and my computer and I start to work on my computer. And I have like this floating, like levitating kind of feeling, because I just love it. I love cracking down on my work. I like proceeding with stuff. I like progressing on activities that I have going on. I like serving my tenants or my owners to help them out with it, whatever they need. And it's just fun. I just enjoy it every single day.
And I think that's great and that's why I said to you, COF would be so amazing for you, because the majority of members on there are self-managed and they are at that point where they need a manager. And I'm like, and I'll talk to them, and some of them are really well ran. They're really, really well ran, but there's going to come a point when they don't have a board that's that active and that sufficient and that, you know what I mean? It's going to, because I mean, boards change out every year, but I mean, you can get a board in place for 10 years.
Yep.
And everything runs like a fine oiled machine and everything's working. And then all of a sudden, you know, those people get tired or they want to move away or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden you get 5 new board members and you've got 2 of the old ones, and now shit's going to change and now everything's falling apart. And I'm like, you need a manager. You have 100 doors. You need a manager.
Yeah.
If you are like, for me, I always tell people 20 and less is a lot easier to self-manage. Once you pass that 20 mark, like
You don't have a full-time job with that because there's a lot of stuff that pulls you away, from that. And I was, Creekside Village in Airdrie,
yeah,
right across from Sobeys.
yeah,
So they had a management company in place. They're 478 units.
yeah,
They've got commercial, as well as, I think 9 buildings or 7 buildings, whatever it is. And they ended up hiring me to manage the board on behalf of the board of directors. So it was essentially again, I wasn't licensed at that time. You didn't need to be.
hmm
I was hired as an employee to manage that property for them. So I managed the entire property as a self-managed board, but I was their property manager. So I set up all their processes. I set up all their websites. I set up everything to do with how Creekside is running. And then the
hmm
board would essentially direct me as we were doing it right there. And
yeah,
so it was a well-oiled machine after a while. It took a long time because there was a lot of crap that went on there, but it does take a lot of effort and time. And I was a full-time employee, and then some, trying to manage that, let alone even if a 20 or 30 or 40 unit complex, you're trying to manage on yourself. I always
yeah,
say if somebody is going to manage it yourself,
yeah.
bring someone on like myself to work with you for a couple months. Let me show you the processes, work with you, or hire me, whatever you want to do. But like if you're looking to do that self-managed process, bring
Mhm.
a person like myself on, or other condo manager on for a couple months, work you through the process, and then at least at that point it can be handed off with a little bit of certainty.
Oh my God, I love that you said this, because I think that when we go to do, like, because I said, like, I'm the host of Condo Chats for COF, and so we bring in different people, but I think that right there would be perfect, is how to help, you put your self-managed property together, like, and then the difference of the contrast between what property managers are, designed to do and what project managers are designed to do. Because even though I have little documents that I send out to people and give them the heads up, I'm like I'm doing one here. I'm doing a condo chat. So I don't know if they're going to have me host my own one. But I'm doing one for the pain points in the construction industry from the point of view of a condo owner. So, I mean, I was a property manager. I was a condo owner. So I understand what you mean when you say that, you love property management, because it's peopling, right?
It is.
And
It very much is.
yeah. And so, and I loved it, but then I got tired of, I wanted to remain in the condo industry, but I didn't want to be a condo manager because I didn't want to do the night meetings, especially as a single mom. It was too hard to do the night meetings. So then I said to myself, what if I was an advocate for them? There is a huge need for that. There's people, like, condo boards get taken advantage of by so many contractors. And I mean, like, I walk onto site, I call them project rescues, when I have to go onto the project when shit has gone completely sideways. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, why did you choose this person when there's so many other options?
Complacency.
Well, they were really nice.
They're all really nice.
and they told me that they were going to do this, that, and the other thing, and that they weren't going to charge us for this, and that it was okay. And I'm like,
yeah,
God.
Yeah, they get so complacent with the status quo. They're just like, you know what, we'll just use the same people we've always used. We know what to expect in payment. They always overcharge us. But it's just that complacency where, it just, if you don't have a little bit of competition between your trades or your different trades at that point,
Yeah.
you're doing yourself a disservice, because you should not be that tied into it. And so many condo companies are that tied into their contractors.
Yes.
It becomes a situation where, like, that I can understand why boards get unhappy with those types of things, or bills that come around or anything like that, because really you have two sides that are on the same page, where they're against one condo that's on the different page from other people. So
yeah.
And even like doing that too, like with regards to condos, kind of mentioning about helping people and that kind of thing, and doing showing kind of a self-directed plan, that type of thing. I love going into quote for properties, and it for me, it's practice for one. I love going in there, just kind of getting used to that process, that type of thing. But I love going in there with the feeling of, I don't care if I get this contract or not. It's not going to make or break me if I get this condo deal or not.
Yeah.
But what I can provide is a little bit of insight to what you should be expecting from a condo, what type of communication you should be expecting, what kind of relationship you should be expecting from them. Because I think a lot of times, again, complacency, or with the same condo manager, it takes a lot to switch. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time to do that. So people do stick with those same companies. But I love providing information to say, you know what, it doesn't have to be the way that it's always been done. it can actually be handled a lot differently so that you're satisfied as a condo owner, not so you're fighting your management company.
Yeah. So you know that so we as an HOA, because we're both in the same community, you know that we are now no longer under Astoria Property Management, right?
That's for the HOA, correct? I'm still renting right now, so I'm not part of the HOA per se. But I know I saw that big sign that was out front there that says something about new PM or something like that.
Yeah. So Sierra, Associa Sierra.
Oh no! Yeah. No way! Did they really? No.
Mind Sierra. I know some of the people over at Sierra, so I'm not too upset about it. And Associa, I do golf tournaments with Associa. They're great. You're like, oh shit.
So my first, I didn't even know they were going after that, to be honest, at that time. So
I did put your name forward.
I remember I was talking about that before too. And I'm again like one of those things. Like I would love to do HOAs too as well. Like I feel like, what do you really do? Like that's a common question with HOAs too as well. What exactly are you doing for the money we're paying and that kind of thing. So, but funny you said Sierra, and the reason I laugh for a multitude of different reasons. But that when I talked about 14 years ago, my first condo,
yeah,
I worked for Sierra Property Management. So
did you really?
They were my first company that I ever worked for. A guy named Kyle Kalu. Do you know Kyle at all?
No.
I don't think he's in the industry anymore. He's look him up on TikTok. He's got a lot of followers. But he was basically brought in to operate Sierra at that time before they were sold to Associa. And so really my first taste going in there was just learning from them and learning the process and learning from Kyle and all that kind of stuff. So it was a good experience. It was just, I don't think it's any different now. A lot of them are thrown to the wolves. And I think a lot of condo property managers, again, if you're a condo property manager, you're looking after 12 properties and, 12,000 doors or 1,200 doors, whatever it is. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And like the attention to details, it's really hard when you're managing 12 properties.
Yeah.
It's hard to respond to everybody. It's hard to give your phone calls back all the time. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah. I started with Ultimate Property Management. My portfolio was 14 properties.
Jeez, eh? And was that was condos or just single family?
All condo.
All condos. Wow. And no license at that time either, I'm assuming?
Well, no, because when I was a condo manager, it was 2008.
Oh, yeah. So even then we were 10 years off of getting licensed. Yeah. But that was kind of scary. You think about it though, like a 24-year-old, 50 million in assets, managing board of directors, running AGMs, like that makes no sense at all. I think I'm glad that they put in, at least some licensing for this kind of stuff, but it was a difficult job.
A joke too.
What? Say that again?
The licensing is kind of a joke too.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, it's kind of like all the coursework you have to do. I feel like, you just kind of pummel information into your brain, but you don't actually learn anything until you're on the job and actually doing things and processing paperwork and getting punched in the face by your tenants or whatever it is.
Right. It's not wrong. Like, I mean, I think, and also because of our generation, we were you throw us to the wolves, it's sink or swim, right? And we worked really well under that type of pressure because, I mean, we're right in the middle of Gen X and millennial, right? I tell everybody, I'm like, I'm an Xennial. Don't call me Gen X and don't call me a millennial because I'm neither.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
And everyone's like, oh, you're part of, and I had this one guy, it was so funny. He's like, oh, you're part of the stuck generation. I'm like, what the hell is that? And he's like, well, the Xers fight with the millennials and all the other generations. And you guys have enough sense in your head to understand the X's because you guys have a similar mentality, but then you also grew up with the rest of the millennials. So you like the same music and you have like the same kind of quotes and stuff. They're like, so you guys are kind of stuck in between all the fighting and bullshit because the boomers hate everybody and the millennials. And I'm just like, it's accurate.
Yeah. Well, you have to put us right in the middle too, because we were the ones that really started with the internet and computers and dial up and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely not the same category, I think, as those other groups. So I think it is something in the middle. Yeah. The Xennial.
With you. Right. Well, you know what? I'm gonna wrap us up.
Yeah.
Because you know how people are. They're like, I can only listen to 45 minutes, an hour of the podcast.
If that, yeah.
I'm like, all right, guys. But you know what? I do want you to come back onto the show, and I'm going to send you some emails and some stuff in regards to COF, which reminds me I have to do that with somebody else anyway. So I'm going to send some stuff to you so you can look into it. Maybe become a member if you have a chance. I don't think their memberships are anything crazy.
No, there weren't anything crazy. And I think we talked last time. I was like, yeah, I definitely got to look into it. And I didn't have my license at that time. And now I'm like, you know what? Now's the time.
Yeah. So I'll send you all the info that you need with an invitation to do the condo chats with us. And that will be amazing. And then, like I said, you have to swing back on here because you are fun to talk to, Brad. You got a character about you because, well, you did podcasts, so you know what it's all about. You know what I mean?
You get a little bit more comfortable with it now. And after you do it a few times, and even TikToks, you do it a few times, you suck at it at first, but then you get a little bit more comfortable with it. And I think it is something to it. But yeah, I'm always happy to come on again for sure.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Okay, well, thank you for being on the show. Hang tight for like 3 seconds until I can wrap us up, and then we got to make sure the video loads so that everybody can hear how wonderful you are.
Sounds good.
So thanks for coming on the show. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. As you know, A Devil's Advocate Trades Edition drops every Wednesday. Every once in a while, I'll throw in that Easter egg now that we're on season 2, and you guys will get double the fun in the same week. If you guys have any questions or anything else you guys want to talk about, please email me, lisa@lpmenterprises.net. And if you'd like to get a hold of Brad, because you are in the Alberta area, then you can. Brad, how'd they get a hold of you?
You can call me on my work number, which is 855-601-MINT, which is 855. What did I say? I'm probably all over the place. 855-901-6468. Or you can email me, bradley@mintpm.ca.
Perfect. Okay, until next time, everybody. We'll talk to you then. Don't do anything crazy.